In the first lecture, we discussed what is fascia, and its nomenclature. In the next lecture, we're going to discuss why fascial therapy works. These are the different known techniques that we are actually looking into: fascial release, fascial manipulation, etc. and etc. We can also include cupping here, which also in a way takes care of the fascia aside from lymphatics and blood vessels. So the most notable of all the fascial discussion would be the biomechanical models. Diba yung kapag nag-release ako ng one part tends also to be released. So we call it biomechanical models, and we usually use the word release. Release doesn't mean just softening. Hindi ibig sabihin na break yun. When you say release means what else? Letting go, okay? Adhesions may have softened, okay? Or if it doesn't really soften, something happened within the fascia. Remember the discussions, really this part of this part of the body, there will be more motion, and then the affected area would also be better. Does it really mean na nagkaroon ka ng breakdown ng mga adhesions and soft tissues surrounding the structure? Diba, when you say release, most often than not, we feel that there's a tissue softening. For others, they feel heat, or there will be heat sensing, there'll be relaxed feeling, and then change in breathing, etc. and etc. For most people, we thought that when you say release, it's nothing more but breaking down of tissues. Well, it's not actually that way. So we're still in confusion when it comes to the word release. Hindi natin alam talaga kung ano nangyayari when you say released, right? Everyone's still wondering what release is, and everyone's still bickering about the word release. Well, to begin with, kasi with either of the founder of Rolfer or structural integration, she believes that there's a sort of thixotropy model or thixotropy uh, phenomenon that happens. Diba yung fascia is much like a connective tissue and also a colloidal substance. So if you apply heat, pressure, and friction, yung ginagawa ng mga most of those doing fascial manipulation and fascial releases, yung medyo hard na konti. So this sort of gel tends to change to a more fluid type, which she called sol, or more like solution. Magiging more sol siya. From being a gel type na matigas, okay, when you apply heat, pressure, and friction, mas lumuluwag siya, mas nagiging solution type siya or sol. Okay, the problem here is that when you look at the fascia, look at its characteristic, it really has a high yield characteristic. Meaning to say, hindi siya basta-basta na i-stretch, matigas siya. So, if you're really going to stretch the fascia, okay, you really need to give a lot of pressure or a lot of stretch or a lot of tension just to break a small sheet of fascia. So, it's gonna be really be painful if it's some that's not only be painful to you but also to the patient. So, according to Shildt, okay, there might not be really a form of release that we want to believe. Wala talaga na i-stretch na fascia. Sobrang tigas ng fascia, you need to give it a lot of pressure and tension. And if it's really that easy for us to stretch the fascia, this kind of stretching, di ba, would really be possible. Pero sino naman sa inyo dyan ang nakapag-stretch o nakapag-MFR with the results like the one depicted in the picture? The research of Schleier was also supported by the works of Sean Lee et al. And find out that you can really change the physical structure of the fascia. Pero we tend to feel the release, right? Diba, lumalambot yung tissue, nakakaroon ng heat, nagkakaroon ng improvement sa breathing, etc., etc. So what is really that kind of release? One, one research or one possibility of the so-called release uh, would be found through the works of Antonio Stecco and Luigi Stecco. Okay, well, Stecco found out that the substance in the fascial network has a lot of HA or hyaluronic acid. Okay, so when this acid is in between each fascia, in between each tissue. For example, ito yung kamay ko, and in between is the hyaluronic acid. Okay? Once you apply heat pressure into it, hindi naman yung fascia talaga yung nag-break, but just the hyaluronic acid. That's why when there's hyaluronic in between the fascia, what happens and if you apply pressure, lumuluwag yung hyaluronic acid, mas nagiging mas more soluble or more fluid, thus causing a better translation in between fascia and another structure. But interfascia, between a fascia and a muscle, between fascia and skin. So in order to liquefy the hyaluronic acid, you need a lot of heat and pressure and friction. Okay? Once the hyaluronic acid viscosity lessen, then the fascia may be able to slide from from one structure to another structure. So even if Steco is correct that when once you apply heat and pressure and friction in the fascia, would you be able to maintain na liquefied siya or more soluble solution, soluble type siya, right? Would it mean na mas nagiging mas nami-maintain yung pagiging ano? Kasi pag once treat mo, syempre, would it stay the same? Okay? Current research suggests that it does not. But pain decreases and function improves as carry-over effect. Okay? Hindi siya nag-maintain as such, pero as you continue to improve on the movement, nagkakaroon siya ng improvement ng function and nagle-lessen yung pain perception. But with fascial manipulation, di ba ito yung mga nagpapawisan ka rin as a therapist when you're doing myofascial release, when you do a hard fascial manipulation, yung talagang dinidiinan yung structure. Well, if you apply pressure, uh, heat, and friction, definitely it could also affect such. Pero may mga techniques like Bowen, kinesio taping, coring techniques that are quite soft. Okay, when you see a Bowen therapist, kita mo yun, this is the structure being treated, ginaganon lang nila. Okay, then iiwanan na for 2 minutes. And eventually, the patient gets better. There's less pain, better function, and more mobility. Okay? When you do kinesiotaping, hindi ka na nagpapawisan. All you have to do is just tape and then improvement also follows. When you see core links, kita mo parang nagme-meditate lang yung practitioner. It's not that heavy, but still good results follow. Okay? Although we believe that there's really an improvement when it comes to fascia releases, yung talagang hard fascia release, yung talagang pagpapawisan ka, either as a therapist or as a patient, there are other might there's a seemingly another possible reason why fascia release works, and that's what we're going to discuss in the next video.